Min, is that you?
19.
Min, are you in here?
The movie begins with a woman named Veri driving at night with her daughter, Min. While driving, Veri keeps ignoring incoming calls. She tells Min that they should play a game where Veri will count to 10, and Min will hide, while Veri tries to find her. After counting, Min hides, and Veri stops at a gas station to fill up the car, seemingly dragging out the trip for an unknown reason. She then enters a store to buy food but behaves strangely, trying to avoid the store cameras as if she's hiding from someone. Her actions make it seem like she's on the run, though the reason remains unclear. Once Veri gets back in the car, she realizes Min is missing. After a moment of panic, Min surprises her by appearing from the side of the car, and Veri continues driving. As she drives, fatigue sets in, and Veri almost crashes after a truck swerves too close to her car. She avoids the accident but decides to stop and rest for a while. The next morning, a knock on her car window startles her, making her fear it's the police, but it's only a warning from officers about bandits in the area. Veri thanks them and drives off, ensuring they aren't following her. Veri and Min finally arrive at Veri's mom's house, situated in a quiet, isolated area. Inside, Veri shows Min a mark on the wall where her mother used to measure her height. Min stands by the mark, now the same height as it. As they start doing some work, we notice Veri has a hidden revolver in her bag. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door. Veri reacts nervously, warning Min not to touch the curtains. At the door, she finds Vanit, the caretaker of the house. He offers to help and tells her that his house is nearby if she needs anything. Just as Veri is about to close the door, Vanit notices the curtains moving, which makes Veri nervous. Once he leaves, she rushes back inside to scold Min, accusing her of opening the curtains. Min denies it, insisting she's telling the truth, but Veri doesn't believe her. As Veri packs her things, she notices a large amount of cash in her bag, which she quickly hides before going to the bathroom. While washing her hands, she feels someone's hand on her shoulder, but when she turns around, there's no one there. She brushes it off as her imagination. Later, when Veri and Min sit down to watch TV, they see a strange shadow on the screen that appears to be breathing. Min gets scared, and the TV suddenly turns off. The weather worsens, and Veri starts to feel uneasy, though she hides it from Min. She tells Min it's time to go to bed. Before heading to their room, Min asks about a locked door in the house. Veri says she doesn't know what's behind it since she's never entered. The next day, while they're having breakfast, the lights start flickering. Min screams after seeing a terrifying ghost behind Veri. At first, Veri thinks Min is just afraid of the dark. Then, she remembers the generator in the house and takes Min to turn it on. The generator is large, almost like the kind that powers a mill, and surprisingly, it still works after all these years, restoring the lights. That night, everything seems fine, and they sleep peacefully. The next morning, they play a game of hide and seek, with Veri hiding under the bed. However, when Min enters the room, she doesn't check under the bed. Veri comes out to surprise Min but then notices something strange. Min isn't playing anymore. Instead, she's sitting and drawing while wearing a strange mask. Veri doesn't know where the mask came from and watches her silently. Suddenly, Min runs over and catches Veri, snapping her back to reality. Veri looks at Min, realizing something feels wrong. Is this really Min, or is it some ghostly version of her wearing a mask? Or is there something supernatural happening in the house? Veri didn't say anything, but she was confused and scared. That night, the ghost appeared again. Min was terrified of the ghost and kept saying she didn't want to stay in the house anymore. She was so scared that she begged to leave, talking about how she couldn't live there because of the ghost. It seemed like the ghost was bothering Min more than Veri, and Min was really frightened. But Veri had to stay calm. She explained to Min that they couldn't leave the house. She told Min they couldn't go to her dad's house anymore because it wasn't their home anymore. Veri said, "We only have this house now, and we have to live in it." Min didn't understand at first, but after a lot of explaining, Veri finally managed to calm her down and make her go to sleep. The next morning, Veri and Min were playing. As they played, Veri saw a little girl again, wearing the same strange mask. Viri thought the girl might have come from outside. She went to check, but when she did, the girl started running away. Viri chased after her, but the girl quickly disappeared. Viri stood there, feeling confused and lost. Who was that girl? Where did she come from? What was happening? Suddenly, Viri heard Min screaming from upstairs. She rushed to Min's room and tried to open the door, but it was locked. When she finally got it open, she was shocked to see that all the furniture in Min's room was floating in the air. Viri felt scared and couldn't find Min anywhere in the room. She started calling Min's name, shouting for her, but there was no answer. Viri searched the whole room and then checked the rest of the house, but Min was nowhere to be found. She ran outside with a flashlight and looked around the forest, but Min was still missing. Feeling desperate and scared, Viri decided to call the police to report Min's disappearance. The inspector arrived at the house and quickly noticed the marks on Viri's face. She also saw that some tiles in the entrance were broken. When she looked up at the roof, she saw that the shed above the house had collapsed, and it seemed that the roof had fallen, causing the tiles to break. She began her investigation by asking Viri what had happened. Viri told him everything: how she saw the girl with the mask, followed her, and how Min disappeared. She also told the inspector about the floating furniture in Min's room. But the inspector didn't believe her. She found it hard to believe that the furniture could just float on its own. She thought maybe Viri was imagining things or that she felt guilty about something. The inspector asked about Min's father, and Viri lied, saying she and her husband had separated a long time ago. After asking more questions and checking Min's room, the inspector asked for a photo of Min to continue her investigation. Viri didn't have any photos of Min. All of them were on her old phone, which she dropped when she arrived at the house. The strange thing was that Viri didn't use social media, so there were no pictures of Min online either. The inspector collected what evidence he could, but nothing pointed to Min having lived with Viri. Just then, Bunit, the caretaker of the house, arrived. When the police asked him about Min, he said that Viri had come to the house alone. Viri quickly corrected him, saying, "No, Bunit uncle, remember? Min was upstairs that day when the curtains were moved." But no one believed her because she had never shown Min to anyone. The police started thinking that Viri might have some psychological issues, and they began to suspect that she might not have a daughter at all. The inspector learned that Viri had returned to the house after many years. She asked her where she had been, and Viri finally told him the truth. She had come from Bangkok just a week ago. She explained what had happened during her journey, but when the inspector checked the CCTV footage from the road she mentioned, there was no sign of Min. Viri had hidden Min from the cameras. Now, the inspector began to think that maybe Min had never existed. This made the inspector decide not to file a report about Min's disappearance. One night, Viri couldn't take it anymore. She went to the police station and told the inspector everything. She cried as she spoke, saying, "I'm not lying. I have a daughter. I brought her from Bangkok. My husband used to hurt me, and I had to run away from him. I even shot him before leaving." She also told the inspector that she believed her husband had kidnapped Min. Viri was very angry and called her husband, accusing him of kidnapping Min. She told him that he must have taken Min. Her husband responded by denying the accusation. He said that he didn't even know where Viri had gone, so he couldn't possibly have taken Min. He had no idea what she was talking about. The inspector took the phone from Viri and began talking to her husband. He explained everything that had happened so far. The inspector asked her husband if he had any photos of Min and informed him that a report would be filed to start the investigation into Min's disappearance. Viri, the police inspector, her uncle, and a group of villagers went into the jungle to search for Min. They spent hours searching the area, but they couldn't find any trace of her. They were exhausted, so they returned to Viri's house. The rain had started, and they decided to stay inside for shelter. While they were inside, the inspector noticed a locked room and asked Viri about it. She wanted to know what was behind the locked door. Viri explained that the room had been locked for many years, and she had never seen what was inside. She reassured the inspector that she had checked all the other rooms, but Min was not in any of them. The inspector, not fully convinced, decided to break open the lock. Once the door was opened, both Viri and the inspector were shocked to find a hidden basement, which they hadn't known about. This discovery left both of them feeling uneasy. The group went into the basement, but little did they know that someone was watching them from behind. Inside the basement, they found many strange machines, and in the center, there was a glass cabin. The inspector immediately understood that it was some kind of lab where experiments had been carried out. Vary, on the other hand, was completely lost and had no idea what was happening. Above the glass cabin, there was a strange black circle on the ceiling. It appeared to have been caused by something burning, which puzzled the inspector because it wasn't the result of a short circuit. The shape was too perfect. When they checked the room above the basement, they noticed that there was a matching black circle on the floor. It was in the same place as the circle in the basement. The inspector realized this connection and thought it was very strange. The forensic team also arrived and examined the area, but they could find no clue or trace of Min. Despite their best efforts, they couldn't find any evidence of where Min could be. The inspector, after looking at all the clues, had to admit that they were not getting any closer to finding Min. Vary was deeply saddened by this and didn't know what to do next. She stayed at the house, feeling hopeless. The others left, and Vary stayed behind. That night, she suddenly felt like someone had entered her house. She wasn't sure if it was Min or someone else, but the feeling terrified her. Panicking, she called the inspector and grabbed a gun. She slowly started checking the house, trying to find out who had come inside. When she went toward the noise, she saw a little girl who looked just like Min. The girl was quietly counting out loud, from 1 to 20. As soon as the girl noticed Vary, she ran into Min's room. Vary followed her, and when she entered the room, she saw all of Min's belongings floating in the air again. This frightening sight made her heart race. The girl was hiding inside the closet, and when Vary opened the door, the girl pulled her inside. Vary felt like she was falling into a deep hole. She couldn't stop herself and kept falling deeper and deeper until she lost consciousness. When Vary woke up, she was no longer in her house. She found herself in the same cell-like room they had seen earlier. To her surprise, her mother was standing in front of her. Seeing her mother made Vary feel confused and emotional, bringing back memories from her childhood, especially the times when she had longed for more time with her family. The scene shifted to a flashback, set in 1991. A young Vary was eagerly waiting for a trip with her parents. However, her excitement quickly turned to disappointment when her mother, an engineer, received a call about an emergency at the dam. She was needed immediately, so the family trip was cancelled. Vary was heartbroken. It became clear that her mother was dedicated to her work, which often kept her away from her family. Through the conversation, it was revealed that Vary's mother and her team had been trying to complete a project for years without success. However, they finally felt hopeful this time as they powered up their machine. But then, something strange happened. The ground began to shake, and a black hole appeared above the machine, surrounded by storm clouds and lightning. Out of the hole, a shoe fell. The group realized that the machine wasn't just a regular one, it was a time machine. The shoe had come from a different timeline, and Vary's mother was ecstatic, knowing that this discovery could change everything. She had been working on time travel, and the appearance of the shoe meant they were one step closer to success. However, there were still many problems with the machine that needed fixing. At this moment, Vary's mother noticed that the mood in the room was tense. Her family was upset because she had ruined their trip once again. Her husband, frustrated, expressed his anger, telling her that she had responsibilities, especially as a mother to Vary, and couldn't keep focusing on her work. He was upset because she had put her career above her family. Vary's mother, feeling guilty, realized how her work had affected her family life. The next day, Vary's mom, feeling guilty for her past actions, decided to make up for everything by planning a trip with Vary. However, as they drove, her mind kept drifting back to her time machine experiment. Tensions between her and her husband escalated into a heated argument. In a fit of anger, Vary's mom grabbed the steering wheel and left the road. Vary screamed, begging her to stop, but her mom didn't listen. Suddenly, a truck came from behind and crashed into their car. Vary and her father died in the accident. This shocking event revealed the biggest twist. Vary, the main character, had been dead for many years, all the way back in 1991. So, what year was it now? It was March 14, 1991. After the accident, Vary's mom went mad with grief. She couldn't forget that day and kept trying, day after day, to go back in time and stop the tragedy that had taken her daughter and husband away from her. Years passed, and Vary's mom couldn't escape the pain. She felt like the murderer of her own family. Overcome by guilt, she even considered ending her life. One day, she went to the dam and out of nowhere, a wormhole appeared. In a panic, she lost her sandal, which got pulled into the wormhole, sending her to a different timeline, back to 1991, before March 14th, the day her time machine was first activated. At that moment, she remembered everything: the sandal, the day her time machine worked. With newfound hope, she decided to go back to the time machine to fix everything. She worked tirelessly, day after day, month after month, and finally, the machine was ready. As she tried to set it for March 14, 1991, the machine stopped working for a brief moment, crushing her hopes. She was consumed by anger and frustration. In her despair, she hit the machine, not realizing which button she pressed. To her surprise, the machine powered up again, creating another black hole. This time, it sucked in Min. This meant that the events of March 14th were not caused by some supernatural force, but by the wormhole that had been created by the time machine. The wormhole from the future, 2024, had crossed over into the timeline of 1991. Desperate and confused, Varie's mom was deeply worried. She knew if something happened to this girl, her last hope would be lost. The girl, who had been sleeping, woke up in the same house, but now everything felt different. She didn't realize she was in a different timeline. She began searching for Varie, but the house was empty. Frantically calling out for her, she was overcome with sadness when she couldn't find her. At this point, Varie's mom entered and comforted the girl, calling her love, just as she used to call Varie. She promised herself that she would never make the same mistake again, and she wouldn't ignore this girl like she had done to her own daughter. We also see Vanit, the driver who had been with Varie in the beginning. He asked Varie's mom who this new girl was, and she lied, saying she was a relative she had adopted. Varie's mom took the girl everywhere: shopping, to the park, and for walks. She treated her like her own daughter, trying to fill the emptiness left by her lost family. Vanit was happy to see her so content. Varie's mom, despite everything, still had love and care for her daughter and husband in her heart. Her guilt over the past led her to decide to start her time machine once again. She was determined to go back to March 14, 1991, the day her family was taken from her. She hoped that if she could change that day, her family would be reunited. After pressing the button, Varie's mom and Min started to play hide and seek. When Varie's mom was searching for Min, she entered her lab. At the same time, Min entered the same closet and reached her own timeline in 2024, and again when she went into the closet, Varie followed her out of curiosity. She discovered Min hiding in the closet, and she was pulled into the timeline of 1991. Varie woke up in a glass box. She was shocked to see her mother, feeling a mix of happiness and confusion, but she called out to her mom. Varie's mom, however, was deeply troubled. She didn't recognize the girl and was confused as to why she was calling her mom. Varie, uncertain of what was happening, thought that she had died and entered the afterlife, where she was now reunited with her mother. In this emotional moment, Varie pulled out a gun, which only made her mother more frightened. Varie's mom, panicked, begged her to lower the weapon, but just as things became more tense, the scene shifted back to the present day. In 2024, a police inspector arrived at Varie's house, hoping to find clues about her disappearance. She found no sign of Varie and searched everywhere, including the house and the surrounding jungle, but she was nowhere to be found. Upon thoroughly searching the house, the inspector discovered large sums of cash and weapons. This raised suspicions that Varie hadn't run away but was, in fact, missing, which deepened the mystery surrounding her disappearance. In 1991, Varie's mom, still in fear and confusion, took the gun from Varie and locked her in the glass cabin. Varie, calling out for her mom, screamed in desperation, but her mother left and locked the door behind her. The scene returned to the present timeline, where the inspector continued her investigation into Varie's disappearance. She found old family photos of Varie's parents and contacted Uncle Vanit for more information. Vanit informed the inspector that the woman in the photos was Varie's mother, a professor and engineer at a nearby hydraulic dam. When asked about the lab in the house, Vanit admitted he didn't know much about it. He only knew that 30 years ago, Varie's mother had abandoned everything without explanation. Varie remained locked in the glass cabin, hungry and thirsty. Varie's mom brought her food but was visibly afraid. After placing the food in the cabin, she asked Varie who she was and why she was there. Varie, confused and desperate for answers, explained that she lived in the house and had been searching for her daughter. She mentioned finding her daughter in the closet, but had no idea how she ended up in the glass box. Varie's mom, realizing that Varie had come searching for her, was conflicted. She had begun to see this girl as a replacement for her lost daughter, but now, unsure of what to do, she locked Varie back in the cabin and left to go upstairs. Feeling uncertain about what was to come, Varie's mom sent Vunny to watch over Varie. She was struggling to maintain control over the situation, unsure of the future but feeling desperate to keep things under control.